I want to start this video off by just asking a few questions. Are you the type of person that feels like the more things change, the worse they actually get? Perhaps you have this everlasting and ever-growing back pain that you just can't explain. Maybe every time you move now, you can hear your knee crack, or perhaps every time a kid walks in front of your house, you just get this urge to tell them to please get off of your lawn. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you said yes to any of these questions, boy do I have the mod list for you. The mod list that we're going to be covering today is called gatetosovngarde, or GTS for short, and I'm obviously just kidding with all that. It's actually a pretty fun list that I think appeals to quite a few people. Especially when you consider how old of a game Skyrim has become by now. I mean, it's been what, 14 years? That's like a little under half of my life ago, which is crazy. It feels like it was just yesterday that I walked up to Walmart and they would not sell me Skyrim because I was under the age of 18 and my aunt had to buy it for me. Real story. So what exactly is GTS and who is this for? In a nutshell, if I had to put this into a few words, I would say that this is a Vanilla Plus or Vanilla Plus Plus experience for Skyrim. It's not the type of list that's trying to reinvent the wheel. Like, it's not trying to turn Skyrim into Dark Souls or into Genshin Impact. It's trying to be very loyal to what made Skyrim great. And that's exactly why so many people love this list. It's not unknown or niche. Everybody knows this list. It's been around for quite a while, and it is a fan favorite. A lot of people bring up this being their favorite list for several reasons we're going to cover. If I could name one of the most frequent comments or frequent sentiments that I see on a lot of my videos, especially the ones where we cover some of these newer, shinier mod lists like Lorem or Novus, it would go something along the lines of, it looks cool, but it looks too different from the base game. It looks cool, but could you even say that this is Skyrim anymore? It's too shiny. It looks too much like Genshin Impact. It looks too much like Dark Souls. Yada, yada, yada. That's one of the most common comments that I see. So, if you often feel that way, this is the mod list for you because it's catering exactly to people that feel like you do. People that want to still experience something that resembles Skyrim. They just want more stuff. And with that said, make no mistake because this is not a small mod list by any means. It's over 1800 mods, which is why I'm saying it's a vanilla plus plus. Contrary to what it may seem at first glance, it's not really going for this absolute minimalist type of approach where we've only picked the absolute most necessary and important mods so it can run on any computer or whatever. Not really, although it is about half the size of some of these other very popular collections like Lorem or Novus. It is about half the size and it is easier for your computer to run in general. It is less graphically intensive than running Novus on all their ultra settings or Lorem for sure. But the concept of a minimalistic or more focused type of approach here doesn't really apply to the size of the collection itself. It applies to what it's actually trying to do. It applies more to the way that the game looks, feels, and plays. It's trying to recapture that more classic feeling of the game while also adding a ton of stuff with a huge emphasis on immersion. You can kind of tell this just by looking at the footage that I'm showing in this video. It does look very nice. It's a really beautiful list. It does a lot to the game. However, it still feels and looks like Skyrim. It doesn't look like you're playing Genshin Impact. Which I will say, I think is a very good thing. Not just for the people that like the classic feel of the game or whatever, but also for returning players. Those are the first people that come to mind. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that when this game first came out, they played it to no end. They beat the game like 20 times, but they haven't picked it up in over a decade, and they're just kind of looking for an excuse to get back into it. However, when they look at the current mod scene for the game and they look at some of these showcases for different collections, they probably look at it and it doesn't ring nostalgia. They probably don't want to come back to a game that they don't recognize type of thing. Like maybe coming back to a completely overhauled version of your childhood is not really what you're looking for. You want to still kind of feel at home. You don't want to have to relearn an entire different game, or you still want to get that sense of nostalgia type of thing. If you wanted to play a newer game that plays like Dark Souls, well then maybe you would just probably buy Dark Souls, right? So I do see the appeal, especially for returning players. If somebody hadn't played this game in years, and they wanted to get back into it, but they wanted something different with a lot more stuff, this is exactly the collection that I'd recommend. I think it might also help prevent a potential issue that I'm sure we've all been through, right? There's this classic game that you used to play when you were a teenager and you have really good memories of it, but when you pick up to play the game, it's just not that good anymore. It doesn't hold up. And as a consequence, you kind of feel like your entire childhood was a lie or something, right? You feel like you had rose-tinted goggles the entire time, or you just didn't know any better. And it kind of leaves a sour taste on your mouth and makes you never want to revisit the game again because, again, it just doesn't hold up. I think this mod list is going to help prevent that because it's going to welcome you back to the game that you remember. It's going to make you feel at home, but there's a lot more there, like a lot more to see, a lot more to do, a lot of major type quest areas that weren't there in the original game, like Broom and whatnot. It really focuses on adding more quests to the game, more items, more of everything, while you still feel like you're reliving your childhood type of thing. As a matter of fact, if you haven't played this game in a long time, I am almost sure that you're going to pick up the collection, you're going to play, and there's going to be a lot of different items and quests or NPCs that you're going to be second guessing yourself, where was this guy really here in the original or is it part of the mod? I kind of remember this shield, but I feel like it might be part of the collection. I found myself doing that constantly. Now, I've played the vanilla to no end that I can tell it apart, but if I hadn't played the game in a decade, maybe I couldn't even tell because everything is kind of very purposeful, especially things like items. This list is very popular, so as they advertise, there are a lot of mods that get made with this list in mind, right? When they make a new sword, a new equipment, a new armor, or whatever, a lot of content creators, a lot of modders, they could make that piece of equipment look more modern, look more shiny, but they make it with this collection in mind and they want it to fit in with the base game, almost to where you can't tell that it wasn't part of it. That's really where a lot of the magic is happening here. Oftentimes you just can't tell what is and what isn't part of the base game, and that's intentional and it's done very well. You can also notice this in things like the combat. For better or for worse, it's still very much Skyrim's original combat system. Although yes, it has definitely received some improvements. For example, if you like playing in third person, it uses the directional movement mod. You can lock into your enemies now. It's a lot more enjoyable to play third person with this. It does also attempt to improve the enemy AI a little bit, right? So you have to time your blocks better. The enemy is a lot more aggressive. You have to be more mindful and kind of look for openings and stuff like that, which aren't present in the original game. But it still very much feels like Skyrim's combat, which, hey, don't hate me, but I was never that big of a fan of in the first place. But again, it's not about me or what I've grown to like. It's about being loyal to the original experience. And again, you'll see that in every detail. A lot of the mods that it adds you might also already be familiar with, but they're worth mentioning. Things like Weathers of Skyrim, which give the game actual seasons and the weather changes, which makes it a lot more immersive. It also adds some of the coolest systems that I've ever seen for the game. Like there's an injury system now. You have to actually treat your wounds and things like that, like make bandages, sanitize them with alcohol. Your character can get traumas and stuff like that too, very similar to Darkest Dungeon, where depending on something that may have happened, your character develops a fear of something now, like a trauma. Like I believe my character at one point developed a fear of bandits, and that's going to affect your character going forward. It also adds my favorite reputation system that I've ever played. It's really, really well done here. And this reputation system affects your entire game and how everybody treats you. As a matter of fact, it even affects guilds that you can or can't join. It affects who's going to attack you on sight or who's going to be your buddy. You start this game completely unknown. Nobody knows who you are, so they treat you like that. And as you play the game, if you're playing a more rogue type of character, like you've been doing bad stuff, you'll get treated like that. If you were a nicer character or more of a hero, people will recognize you in that region and treat you as such. If you're the Thane, or if you're a member of whatever guild, whatever you do in the game, it actually kind of shapes the world around you. That's one of the things they take a lot of pride in and they bring up a lot, is that your decisions matter. Your actions have consequences and they actually shape the world around you. And it's going to shape how people treat you. Like just one of the quick examples off the top of my head that I remember noticing. There was one point where I wanted to join the Thieves Guild, and my character was kind of a hero up to that point. It was kind of unknown, but everything I've done so far was, lawful type of thing. And you can read on my reputation that this character tends to follow the law or whatever. He's an upstanding citizen. So then I go to Riften and I try to join the Thieves Guild and I try to trigger that initial quest, which basically launches you into the Thieves Guild. And when it comes time to it, when I talk to Brynjolf, the NPC that starts it, The conversation is just not available, and it took me a while to understand why. But it makes sense. Like, if you're a hero, if you're a guy that's been out there killing bandits, you never stole anything, and you have a good reputation, why would the Thieves Guild approach you? I've always found that really stupid about Skyrim, that you can kind of join whatever guild that you want, no matter what you did. It breaks immersion. I know that you can kind of make your own story, but I do like that the game imposes that on you, because it just makes sense. If you're a good character, you probably shouldn't be a member of the Thieves Guild, right? So it's stuff like that. The things you've done up to that point or haven't done affect how things unfold. Also in this run, I chose to join the Legion, so I wasn't surprised that I got randomly attacked by Stormcloaks, right? So it's stuff like that that just makes sense, you know? Every little thing here feels very intentional and deliberate, and you can tell this in things like the NPCs, for example. The first thing I noticed in the game were the women, which they still look gorgeous, but a very common complaint that I see in my videos is that a lot of these lists try to make the women look like supermodels, and they just don't fit. And in my opinion, this is still the case here. However, they're done in a way where they look very beautiful and attractive, but they don't stick out like a sore thumb, right? They still look like they could be part of the game. They look like they fit in, except Ayala, man. Oh god, Ayala just looks creepy. Which that was probably also intentional. She's a huntress and a werewolf. She's supposed to look creepy, so it fits, you know? Speaking of NPCs, it does add a lot of not only different NPCs, but also different interactions and little things that you can have with them. It does add a lot of, say, standalone followers and other NPCs that are quest givers, right? They come with their entire storyline type of thing, but it also adds NPCs that are just, you know, background, but you can also interact with them. There's a lot of different things you can do. Like, you can randomly approach people and play cards with them, like gamble, playing dice and stuff like that. Or you can threaten them. You can threaten them to rob them. Like, I have this situation here I'll show where I came up to this NPC and I tried to rob him. And next thing I know, they're like blowing the whistle on me, and this guard just comes up and just murders me, right? So little things like that. You can trick them into not paying attention to what you're doing. You can ask them to follow you, become followers, do different things. In general, it makes the game feel a lot less empty and more lived in. That's definitely what I felt throughout this list. Skyrim and Bethesda games in general just have this awful feeling of emptiness. Like 10 people live in any place in any given time, if that, right? So you're going to feel like there's a lot more travelers, a lot more people passing by. Like, there were several instances where I just saw members of the Thieves Guild randomly getting killed. Random little interactions, like 2 NPCs just randomly start talking to each other and asking how their day is going type of thing. Again, makes you feel like you're really there. You can do things like knocking on doors. If there's an NPC or a shopkeeper that closed down a little bit too early, or you woke up too early so they're still not open, you can knock and try to ask them to open up a little bit early or stay late for you, and they just might or they might not, right? Just kind of like you would in real life. Hey, Bob, I forgot to grab some stuff. Can you reopen the store for me? Hey, Bob, I know I'm an hour early, but can you open it up early because I got a quest to do or whatever? Could you please do it? And Bob just might say yes. So little things like that that really add life to the interaction with the NPCs, and they feel like less of background, which I really like. Adding to and really going for that sense of immersion is also the way that the game starts, which is very similar to what Lorem opted to do on their last update, which when you start the game, you get to choose your character's background. And I love this feature. It's one of my favorite things that modders have ever done, where you get to actually choose where your character comes from, what he is, what he specializes in, right? You can see from the footage that I'm showing, there's a ton of backgrounds to choose from, and I think you can choose up to 3 of them. So you can customize the character you want to roleplay as from the beginning. And right when you start, you can choose very similar to alternate start. If your character is already a member of a guild, if you're just lost in the woods, if you're doing the traditional Helgen start of the game, or if you want to start in Bruma, which is an entire separate mod that I won't spoil because it adds a whole new area to the game that's not part of the base game. You can really choose your start the way you want. It has a big emphasis on roleplay also, which that I really do appreciate a ton. It's little things like that. Like I had mentioned before, your character gets stressed, right? So when one is stressed, how does one unwind, especially at that time? Well, Maybe you kick back by the fireplace and you grab a couple of drinks, and that brings your stress meter down. It's very, very cool, and it reminds me a lot of a mod called Dark Future for Cyberpunk 2077. That's one of my favorite immersion survival type of mods ever made, because in that mod you also have a stress meter, and the way you wind down is like by smoking cigs, by drinking, by doing other things, by taking a shower and whatnot. And I always found that very cool, because not only does it add to the sense of immersion, but it also gives a purpose to a lot of these items that are kind of cosmetic in nature and don't really do anything. Like, there's no point in drinking a bottle of meat in the original game. Not really, right? Well, now there's a reason. Everything has a purpose and a reason, and it makes you feel more like you're there, you know? Another thing I'll say is that a lot of these mods kind of focus on quality of life improvements. It's little things like animations when your character's eating, you can see their hands, or when they're picking stuff up and whatnot. When you are climbing ledges and stuff like that, like, you don't get stuck as often. If you're trying to go over a ledge, the character can actually climb over that ledge, which you couldn't do in the vanilla game. Little things like that are all over the game. Just a lot of quality of life improvements. Now, the last thing that I want to say before we move into my final thoughts about the list and how I really feel about it and the installation process for it, I kind of want to talk about bugs, because I definitely came across some of those. It's not like this list was a complete buggy mess, but it wasn't free of them either. A lot of these bugs I've seen on the vanilla game already, right? They're kind of a product of being a Bethesda game. They're just kind of buggy sometimes. And then other things just happened. I don't know if it was an issue with my installation of the game. I don't know if it was a conflict with something else that I had installed. Who knows? But I did come across them. I don't know if it's fair to say that they really are present, because a lot of times I'm hesitant to point these things out when there might be a fix that I don't know about, or it might have been an issue I caused somehow with the way I installed it. But I did have some annoying stuff happening, like NPCs getting stuck, and I couldn't start a quest because they were stuck on a ledge or behind a wall, and I would exit the inn and come back and they were still stuck. But eventually they fixed themselves. So that was a one-time thing, and it wasn't an issue for more than like 2 minutes. Another thing that I noticed on occasion was in combat, after sprinting or after doing certain things, my character kind of dashed for a little bit for a while. And again, also something that fixed itself, but I did notice it. All right, so really quick, let's just go over the installation, and there's not a lot to go over. You literally just click a button and it's installed, and then I will give my final thoughts on the list and tell you how I feel. Okay, so all of this sounds great. I really want to get into it, but 1800 mods sounds like a nightmare to install. Well, I'm glad to tell you that actually no, it's actually like a one-click ordeal. They take a lot of pride on making the installation process very, very easy. And it is. It's the easiest collection I've ever installed. No hiccups. Now, before you do install it, I would kind of read the basic installation guide. You can probably just skip through it in 2 minutes. Just make sure to uninstall the game, remove any previous mods or things that might cause conflict, disable your antivirus, boot up the vanilla game first, and then boot up the list. These are common things that people that deal with lists a lot are aware of, but if you're new to it, just give that video a quick watch, and then after you kind of set up, it's just a one-click plug-and-play thing, but you will need Nexus Premium. Needing Nexus Premium is kind of a given. You're always going to need that. I feel like most people already know this, but if you're not familiar with mod collections and you're not aware, you're going to want that. It's about $10 for 1 month, and you're just probably going to use it once for the collection. But the reason you want that is because, again, it's 1800 mods. You don't want to have to install these one by one manually. It's going to take all day or several days. You can just, if you have Nexus Premium, you just hook it up to your Vortex, you click install, and it just does everything for you. And when it's done, you come to play, which, by the way, this is not a Wabjack mod list. It is a Nexus Vortex list. All right, so moving on from that, the next thing I want to talk about are my final thoughts on the list. How do I really feel about it? Like, is this the best list I've ever played? Is it my thing? I'm just going to be completely sincere, and you could probably tell already based on my tone or on the way I mention certain things, but it's not my favorite list, all right? It's not for me. At this point, I like overhauled, modded out Skyrim, Novus V6 type of thing, or Lorem. This is not really for me. But listen, I'm definitely not the target audience. This is not my preferred mod list. I don't really see myself ever playing it again, but I wanted to give it a shot. I get the premise of it now. I get who it's for. And I know there's a lot of people out there that will definitely prefer this over anything else. So I'm glad it exists. Even if it's for a niche of people, it serves a purpose, and it fulfills that purpose very well. It's good at what it does. And with that said, that's going to wrap up the video today. As always, if you stuck with me till the very end, I thank you very much for your time. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit it with a thumbs up because it does help me a lot. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the little bell notification so you know every time I make a new video. Once again, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care.